People who have met their online friends. What made you instantly regret it? Met my best friend at the time on League of Legends. After talking every day for 3 years, I ended up moving to a state much closer to him, so we decided to finally meet. We talked before about all the things we'd do together and how awesome it would be. I loved him so much. He was there for me through so much and was a wonderful friend. He had a new girlfriend at the time of our meetup and he brought her along with him. I had no problem with this, because I'd love to meet the woman who makes him happy. It was abundantly clear from the get-go that she wasn't a real big fan of me. I did my best to be kind, and still had tons of fun. I didn't hear from my friend much after that. A mutual good friend of ours messaged me, and when I asked about my best friend, they said that his girlfriend was telling people that I was basically an awful person for whatever reason. 3 years later and he is engaged to this woman and I'm happy for him, but I haven't spoken to him in those 3 years. I still miss him every day, and I wish I could be there for him on his wedding day. You are a beautiful soul. My brother met a girl in person that he had known for 4-5 years online, during which time they had kind of had an online relationship. She had brought her friend with her to meet him, and while they were sitting around a table awkwardly making conversation, with my brother apparently quite shocked at how bad she looked in person compared to how she looked online, and having absolutely no interest in her other than as friends, the girl sent her friend a message saying, "OMG, get me out of here. He's looking at me like he wants to jump me," but she accidentally sent it to my brother. What ensued was likely incredibly painful to be part of. My brother showed her his phone and looked at her in disgust. I would kill for such an easy out. Maybe not regret it, but it gave me years of depression. I met my best friend through Minecraft. Never made friends in this and I just wanted to play with someone. I have no idea why, so I complimented this girl's skin. We started talking. She was American. I am Polish and my English sucked. We moved to Skype and at first I mostly typed, but later on she started teaching me English somehow by talking with me. She was 1 year older. We knew each other for almost a year and I was staying up all night just to talk to her and her friends that she introduced to me. She was also depressed, so we talked with each other and she was the first person that truly listened to me. We had plans of visiting each other, and then our mutual friend told me she committed suicide. 4 years passed by and now at least I can talk about it and not cry. Still miss her very much though. She flew in town to be a bridesmaid in my wedding, and she decided to cheat on her husband with one of the groomsmen and blame me for that. Because it was my wedding, so that clearly makes it my fault she was unfaithful. How dare you have a wedding on this, the day of my adultery. Met a girl I really liked on WoW, but she lived in another country. After a couple of vacations there it turned into a relationship. Made the decision to move and start a new live there with her. After living there for 4 months I slowly realized she was crazy as heck. Huge mood swings paired with a lot of aggression. Ended up getting stabbed in the side by her while asleep. Needless to say, after getting out of the hospital I took the first plane back home. She's still in a psychiatric hospital. I invited him over to my house and he shat all over my toilet. Just to clarify, it was not in the toilet, it was on the seat and a bit of it landed on the floor. Well, that's a conversation starter. Jeez. It was supposed to be a date. She had her hand on another guy's leg at the bar. I did a Grandpa Simpson at the burlesque. I enjoyed this description of your quick escape. Was it a really bad place? Got bullied in school, was kinda chubby, and had some social anxiety. Went to LAN party with some friends I met over playing WoW. At the time I regretted it because they actually were good for me and gave me happiness. It ruined my then current plans for taking my life. Today I love them all more than life. So glad you found them. The fact the guy kept calling his exes crazy. He forgot I know several of his exes and they were still the least craziest people I know. Ah yes, the Tom Haverford method. When I was in high school I met a guy from a different high school in a local chat room. We hit it off and after a few days we agreed to meet up at the store I worked at once I finished work. Well, I guess he showed up a little early, with a friend, and came through my check stand. I thought it was him. We'd swapped photos, but I was really shy and didn't want to be wrong. I waited for him to introduce himself, but he never did, and he and his friend paid for whatever they had and left without conversation. I was still hopeful that wasn't the guy, so I waited up for him for an hour after my shift. Of course, he never showed, because that absolutely was the guy. He must have been disappointed when he met me in the checkout line, and instead of being a decent person and saying he wasn't interested, he just ghosted me. If I could go back in time, I definitely would have said something to him at the check stand. That's my one regret. For your information, that's all on him. He made it awkward. When I was 14, I had an online friend 2 states away who was 14. He and his mom took a trip TLC me, and the first thing we did when we saw each other was run full speed at one another. Our heads bounced off each other and I chipped my tooth and broke his braces. I am pretty sure his front tooth was also loose and had to go to the dentist to fix it, lol. The video is down below if you wanna see it. And I've gotten this question a few times. We don't talk much at all anymore, but I would consider us friends still. Met up with a friend I met in WoW. I fell down steps. Instead of helping or asking if I am okay, she laughed. Hard, like, not breathing, on the floor, gasping for air, seal clapping hard. We've been friends for like 8 years ever since that, and she still reminds me. She probably just didn't want you to cry. It works on babies. Friend for 6 years flies over to Australia to hang with me for a month. Little did I know he was a bit taller than me. I was 5 feet 10 inches. He was, well, 6 feet 7 inches. I never knew he was this tall. He never talked about it. And when I was at the Brisbane airport waiting for him, I texted him stating I don't know where you are, to which he replied, look up. Towering over everyone is this blonde guy that has the arm span of the airport lobby. I cried. We laughed. And I regret bringing him over because my ceiling almost hits his head. Bet you regret not cleaning the top of the fridge now. We went to a convention and he drunkenly told me and my boyfriend that he wished we weren't together so he could sleep with me. It was very awkward, and he's lucky my boyfriend, now husband, is a patient man. It was my friend Kate who befriended this girl, Jessica, who allowed us to come and stay with her when we traveled to the US. Jessica was rude to me instantly and kept my friend away from me. I'd go upstairs and she'd find a reason for them to go downstairs. She had Kate share her bedroom and she'd lock the door for hours, and so I'd just go off and do my own thing. We met our 2 odd friends and they both ignored me. When it was time for Kate and I to move on to another state, Jessica insisted on coming with us. The lady we stayed with in another state, Robin, took no crap and called Jessica out on her strange behavior. Jessica proceeded to lock herself in a room and demanded Kate stay in there with her. They were in there all day and eventually Kate came out and said to me that there's something wrong with Jessica and she's actually scared. We, Kate and I, had plans to stay with another online friend, Matt, in another state, and Jessica demanded we cancel because she doesn't like or trust Matt. We said no, this is our holiday and we've paid for flights, and Jessica said then she will come with us but we can't meet up with Matt. We said no. She cried. We left. Kate blocked her on everything. Kate's mother called us not long after saying Jessica contacted her crying, saying Kate is in danger and we abandoned Jessica, and she's so concerned for my friend's safety. Edit to add, as I recall, she claimed to be concerned about Matt and basically wanted Kate's mum to tell us to stay with Jessica. It was actually incredibly scary. Kate found out later from another girl, Jane, they all knew each other from a forum, that Jessica had been telling everyone they were in love and had even slept together. I don't know how much of that is true, but I've known Kate for 20 years now and she's never identified as anything but straight. She denied it 100%. Jessica was just obsessed with her, and months later Kate heard Jessica was telling everyone she was saving money to come to our country to find Kate. She never did, thankfully. Other than the time spent with this girl, we had a great holiday and made some good friends. I still talk to Matt, he's great. Added fake names to make story a bit clearer as some people had trouble following. I met a friend on here and we planned to travel together. We were in Desvuada City to start hitchhiking. I instantly regretted it because he seemed like he had no clue of what was happening and that made everything a bit annoying. That feeling lasted 2 days, and now I miss him very much and hope we could see each other again soon. On mobile, so forgive me for any weird formatting. I, F22, had a friend, M26, online for 11 years before we met. I'm Canadian, he is American. We met on a RP site when we were quite literally still kids and were a massive part of one another's lives, especially during our teenage years. We spoke every day through text, on the phone, had each other on social media. We even knew and sometimes spoke to each other's family and friends in real life. He called me his light and his sister, and I called him my brother. We were family. It would take a whole novel to explain our 11-year friendship and what we have been through together, but I'll just try to make it short by saying he had a very crappy and unstable life and a lot of mental health problems. He was a narcissist. I spent many years being his emotional crutch and punching bag, helping him find jobs, being there for his breakdowns. I never broke off the friendship because after all those years, I kind of felt responsible for him. Anyways, last year we finally decided to meet. We were both grown adults and saved money to go on a 10-day trip to a dream destination of mine in the States. I knew this likely would not go well. I knew he was a narcissist, but I just had to meet him. I had to meet my brother, the guy that was there for over a decade. I needed to see him face to face. On this trip he 1. Abandoned me on a mountain during a hike because he decided he wanted weed. When he came back I was obviously mad and wanted to go back to our hotel, but he told me to wait for him in the car while he did the hike on his own. I took an Uber home and he returned as well 4 hours later. 2. Automatically assumed I'd shell out $300 for him to buy a laptop he wanted, without asking me. Just brought me to the store to look around while we waited for our movie to start at the theater and sprung it on me. I refused. 3. Was overall inconsiderate. We only ate at places where he wanted to eat, when he wanted to eat, only did things he wanted to do and not me. Despite the trip being my idea, I missed out on a lot because he just wanted to sit around and do nothing. And so much more. What hurt the most is when I confronted him about it. He told me, "You're not my girlfriend. I don't need your approval or need to change for you to like me." I cut the friendship off and blocked him when we returned home. I also plan on retaking my dream trip one day and doing it properly this time. 11 years, wow. Sorry you went through that. When I was 19 I jumped on a flight to meet a friend I had known for about 4-5 months. We both went through family bereavements and were a shoulder to cry on for each other, via the phone or internet, and we just decided to meet for a few days in a country between us. Until then everything had been perfect. She was the coolest girl, really smart, the kind of person you want to be around all the time. When we met things started great, but a day later she confessed, "You're not what I expected." What 19-year-old and not very confident. This knocked me sideways. I don't know. Just, "You seem different." I never hid who I was before we met. Was completely open, and it put a real sour taste on the rest of my time with her. Instead of chatting non-stop and watching Jackass on TV in the hotel at night, we went quiet and straight to sleep, ate in silence. I put as much effort as I could into it, but I still never got to the bottom of how I was different. We went our separate ways, texted for a few days, then never spoke again. She meant you weren't attractive enough for her. She had a fantasy in her head. I want to emphasize that it was an issue with her. I'm sure you're a great and attractive person. People can easily create fantasies about others when having not met in person, even after seeing photos. Not quite an instant regret, but there were 2 people I was meeting, Maisie and Maya. For the purpose of the story, we discussed meeting again, planned to have sleepovers, just generally have fun. The first day we met up went really well. We all had a good time. I thought it went brilliantly. Then a few weeks later I found out they were carrying out all the plans without me. They still have sleepovers to this day when Maya's back from uni and I'm just left out. I don't speak to either of them anymore. It hurt, lol. I'd met Maisie a few times before and it was fine. This all happened after I met Maya at the same time. A few months down the line Maya confessed she had a crush on me. Don't know if that played into it, but to heck with them. I had to travel to my country's capital for a surgery. After the surgery I couldn't move for 3 days, but the first day when I got up from the hospital bed, I obviously celebrated and told my online friends. They asked what hospital I was in. Long story short, they lived close and came to visit me, but it until they filmed. What do you regret? I regret meeting them in a wheelchair, not having showered, under heavy opioids. They were absolutely wonderful people. and I'll be seeing one of them in a few hours as she is visiting my hometown. Never actually met him but played Apex with a dude pretty regularly, almost every day. We finally exchanged info and then he used to call me repeatedly in depressed fits and be about how girls don't like him. It sucks cause I wanted to help but once it hit 36 calls in one day, I had to block . LOL holy shit. We met over a Dead by Daylight game. He was really charming, funny and nice. Then he fell in love with one girl of our gaming group and they started a long distance relationship. He even flew in to meet her in person. Turns out he is an abusive, narcissistic butthole who constantly belittled my friend. He gaslighted her and loved to play psycho games with our group. We stopped playing with him after a few weeks because he was so toxic to our group. Sadly, my friend struggled at that time and had difficulties to break up with him. Took her several weeks to finally do it. She is so much better now. Frick you Bowl. Another story about Bowl. He then lived with his father in a small apartment, and because he is a sloppy disgusting bastard and his father also, they only had 3 underpants. And yes, I said they, because they shared them. I couldn't believe it. All the time he declared he wants to stop smoking weed, because it makes him stupid. Typical RRM's Osmit. Boy was dumb as heck. Bowl. Ugh. He wanted to frick. I just wanted friendship. He had photos from when he was 16 as the only photos he shared. He was 24 and looked nothing like that now. So much that I couldn't tell how he was the same person as in the photos. I was barely 18 and inexperienced in the world. Money didn't impress me, but he kept trying anyway. Motorcycles terrify me, but he kept trying to up his bad boy image by telling me all about his. All in all, we were totally incompatible, but he kept trying. When I wouldn't bite, he decided I instantly hated him. That was more than 15 years ago. He's still using the same photos on meetup sites. I've called him out on it. He doesn't care. He says no one looks twice if he uses current photos. Truth is, it's his personality that sucks, not his face. Yee. There's more to the using a 16-year-old's photo thing, and it's not good. I'd report him somewhere quite honestly. I had a group of online friends for a bit and I am really close with my older brother like best buds, and one day while we were playing League I asked my brother to join after a while. I guess because my brother was better at the game than me they stopped inviting me to any games, so I eventually was separated from the group. One of them came to my state for an event and asked my brother if he wanted to go. He said yeah and then asked me. I was a bit hesitant, but after my brother insisted I went. I did have fun, but there were moments that made me remember that I am really not in that group anymore. Oh my god, you just described my entire childhood with my little brother. Made a RuneScape friend and chatted on and off for several years. He ended up being nearish to my town and we decided to get some food. Things were going great until a black man and white woman came in and he whispered, completely seriously, "I hate interracial couples." For a moment I thought it was the black man who whispered it. The lady was crazy. We met through an app that was advertised as a meet friends app and not a dating app. Well, turns out, it was a dating app. However, she put in her bio that she was married with 2 kids. I put that I was in a long-term relationship and looking for friends. BTW, I'm a guy. She wasn't. So when we arranged a meetup, her husband and 2 kids were there as well as my girlfriend. Everything was going great. Hung out a few times and added each other on Facebook. Turns out, she was super into the whole breastfeeding in public thing. I get it, you go girl, but she was super obsessed with it. 4 out of every 5 pics she posted to FB was her boob in her kid's mouth. She hot angry when you looked away when in public. She wanted you to stare at her while she breastfed. Just got to the point that I was super uncomfortable with it and moved on. WTF. Only 1 year I regret. The host decided to invite double what we had last year. 14 socially inept nerds in one house for a week. I had 6 panic attacks. Sounds like a movie I would watch. I met a friend on here, AskReddit, spoke for a few months online and then flew 2,000 miles to meet them. Unfortunately for our bank accounts, we fell madly in love and now engaged to married, meaning we're spending thousands on flights and, eventually, a visa application. He's the most expensive date I've ever had, but he's worth every penny. Online friendship turned into online relationship. Online relationship turned into meeting IRL. Meeting IRL led into not working relationship. Not working relationship turned into breaking up and not talking to each other anymore. Met her after gaming with her for like 5 years. My parents allowed me to have her visit me for a weekend. Unbelievably beautiful girl. Had a lot of deep talks on the phone. Were frequently flirting quite hard and stuff. She kind of was my first love interest. We went out for a drink with a few friends of mine. Started hitting on my best friend the second she saw him. Didn't even pay attention to me the whole evening, and the first thing she said the next morning was let's go to his place. That freaking hurt. Alright, a few things. 1. That was 10 years ago, give or take. I've made similar experiences over and over until I learned how to be more precise and direct about my feelings, especially towards love interests. Today, I'm a self-confident guy in his mid-20s that is very secure around people, so I guess things worked out for me. 2. I stopped contacting her after that, while my best friend actually stayed close for quite some years, proceeding to have some strange kind of friends with benefits love affair type situation going on with her. I don't blame him. She was a gorgeous girl, even though it bothered me first. We are best friends still, while she has vanished into nothingness at some point. 3. As men refer to my best friend as a bad friend for not respecting my interest in said girl. He didn't flirt with her that evening at all. It was one-sided, really. Everything that happened between the two of them was afterwards. After I quit contacting her, he asked me if I was okay with him keeping contact, and I was, since my interest had poofed out of existence at this very evening. Seems like you weren't as forward in person as she expected. I have bad anxiety. I met them the first time when I went to Gamescom my first time. Long story short, I had to excuse myself roughly every 15 minutes the first 2 hours because I had to go puke somewhere. After I came down and was able to calm a little, it was fun as heck. But at first I wish I was dead. Or at home. Good job going anyways. Didn't regret any of them, except one. We were all 15 years old, except one kid who was 12. We went to a zoo together and he just walked away from the group without us knowing. Half our time together was wasted splitting up and searching for him because we were concerned. We finally found him and he just told us his dad was going to pick him up and he left us because he didn't feel like it. Should have just told us straight away. We would have probably understood. He was literally gone after the first 10 minutes. I knew a girl who would befriend American gamers to the point where they would buy her free plane tickets that she'd end up using as a free holiday. She said she loved walking right past them at the airport while they looked for some chick who wasn't her. She never gave her real photos so they never knew. She did it at least twice. Cold-blooded. I used to play a lot of Quake and made a few friends through it. About 15 years ago I moved to a state where one of those friends happened to live. We met up, and we got along fine, if not a bit awkward in person. He offered I could come stay with him anytime, but it was a ways out of the city. We sort of lost touch, but just last year his relative contacts me out of the blue. She tells me that my friend had often spoke of me, using my old screen name, and was recently killed by another of our old online friends that he had invited to stay with him. It ended up being ruled as self-defense. She just wanted to know what I knew about the killer to try to make sense of it, but I couldn't remember much other than his old screen name. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.